Welcome back to the Sportsmax Zone. Cricket West Indies, CWI today announced the two squads for the proposed tour of New Zealand, which will feature 3 T20 internationals and 2 test matches from November 27 to December 15. The test squad reads: Jason Holder as captain, of course, Jermaine Blackwood, Craig Brathwaite, Darren Bravo, Shamar Brooks, John Campbell, Roston Chase, Rakeem Cornwall, Shane Dowrich, Shannon Gabriel, Shimron Hetmyer, Shamar Holder, Alzari Joseph, Kimo Paul, and Kemar Roach. Let's take a look now at the reserves. So the Windies Test reserves, we have Nkrumah Bonner, Joshua De Silva, Preston McSween, Shane Mosley, Raymond Reefer, and of course, Jayton Seals. The T20 squad now. Karen Pollard is captain of that squad. We have Fabian Allen, Dwayne Bravo, Sheldon Cottrell, Andre Fletcher, Shimron Hetmyer, Brandon King, Kyle Mears, Rovman Powell, Kimo Paul, Nicholas Pooran, O'Shane Thomas, Hayden Walsh Jr., and of course, Kesrick Williams. Well, speaking earlier today, head selector Roger Harper explained the rationale behind keeping Craig Brathwaite and dropping Shai Hope.
Our batting has been under the microscope, and a lot of questions were asked of the batting again in England. But as regards to Shai Hope, I think we'd all agree that Shai Hope has not been at his best in Test cricket for quite a while. He's performed very well in the 50-over version, but in Test cricket, he's not been anywhere close to his best, and this has gone on for a while. So we've given him an opportunity to go back and work at this aspect of his game and get his batting up to the sort of standard that we know he's capable of, because I think that there's a tremendous future for him in Test cricket, but he needs to get his batting back to where we know it can be. As far as Craig Brathwaite is concerned, yes, he's had some struggles too, but I think he was one of the better performing batsmen in the team on the Tour of England. So naturally, I think as one of the senior guys there up the top, he's been given another opportunity.
Roger Harper continued by explaining the order of business now that the team has been selected.
Having a pre-tour camp in the West Indies.
Yeah.
But everywhere you go, you'll have to endure a period of quarantine. So the plan is to get to New Zealand even earlier than originally planned, have one quarantine there, and then have some extended time leading into the international games there. So you have a camp in New Zealand, so to speak. The party that's due to leave the West Indies would be the Test players, the reserve players, along with the T20 players who are in the Caribbean at the moment, because I think there are about 10 or 11 West Indian players who are in the T20 squad are in the IPL. So they'll be joining the tour later. So you'll have a big contingent in New Zealand, and that will have to be well managed because there might be some protocols around practice sessions and training and that sort of thing. But that's the plan.
So, of course, earlier today, they had that press conference with Roger Harper, Lance and George. And, a lot of questions were posed at him, some really, really difficult one. One I asked him was, well, what happened to Evan Lewis? What happened to Andre Russell? And why did somebody else declined? It's 3 players that declined.
It was
Evan,
Russell and Simmons.
Lendl, right? So I asked him why they declined. So he said that, Evan is explaining to the selectors that he's carrying an injury, so he doesn't really feel that he's fully fit and confident to play. He spoke about them, discussing with their family and, of course, not very comfortable to move forward. Lance, somebody you have a lot of time for, Nicholas Pooran, he's made his way into the squad. I know you'd be happy. Hetty, another one of your players, has made it into the squad. No Shai Hope, though. So I'll start with you.
Yeah, well, I don't think anyone can sympathize with Shai Hope based on his statistics in recent years. He has had 6 single-digit scores in his last 12 innings, and 31 has been his highest score in the last 12 innings that he has had. So his form has been atrocious. You heard Roger Harper suggest that he has to go back and get his game back up to the level that the selectors think that he is capable of delivering. having said that, outside of the players who are currently in the IPL, there's going to be an issue with regard to the match readiness of these squads. The Windies players haven't played cricket for months outside of the ones who were in the CPL and now the few that are engaged in the IPL. And the test series, which is always the premier part of any test tour, it's going to be critical that these players go to New Zealand ready to take on what is a difficult task. New Zealand has always been a difficult trip for the West Indies, even in the halcyon days of West Indies cricket, you know, with the holdings and the batting lineup that included IVA, Richards, Greenidge, Haynes, and so on. It wasn't always easy for them in New Zealand, and this obviously is an inferior squad if you're speaking relative to what the squads would have been from the 80s and 90s. So it's going to be a tough series, and I'm just concerned about their preparation and how ready they will be for the test matches. As I said, for the white ball, there would have been players there who contested the CPL and the IPL in recent months and may have some semblance of form or recent competitive cricket. But for the test players, I think there's a potential problem there.
George, Roger Harper, he spoke about why Craig Brathwaite made it in front of Shai Hope. But I'm eager to hear what you have to say about that selection in particular.
Well, the Craig Hope selection, Craig struggled for such a long time, but we saw in England that he is not back to his best form, but that he is on a path towards his best form. And I think that that's what has saved him. Shai Hope just went backwards and backwards and backwards in England. And credit to the selectors, because now that they've picked this New Zealand test squad, leaving Shai Hope out, there can be no argument at all about their decision being made, the decision being made in haste, because they gave him every opportunity in England to correct the alarming fall off in his performances, and he didn't take the chances whatsoever. So I agree with Roger Harper that this is more than anything else a mental health break that Shai Hope has been given to get his game back together and fight his way back into the squad. We don't have that many options at opener around the region, even during a time when a lot of cricket would have been played in the West Indies and you had the chance to look at a lot of players, especially in these times when there has not been a lot of cricket played, as Lance, and especially of the longer variety. Then you are forced in somewhat to stick to what you know. And when you apply that principle with the incremental, though it may have been progress that Craig Brathwaite made in England, there is sense in sticking with him. I would say that to Lance's concern about the test squad being undercooked, I would say the same thing for the New Zealanders, because since cricket resumed actively, the Windies have been ones that have been active. They of course went to England and they started the first test series after the COVID-19 lockdown, and there has been some white ball involvement for some of the men. But I think I'd extend the point to say the test series is going to be particularly engaging because it's going to be two severely undercooked teams that will be taking the field. And like Lance, I'm very optimistic about our chances in the white ball game.
Yeah.
And as I've said here in the past, the history of West Indies cricket, if you just read it, you realize for some reason, no matter who we have bowling for us, no matter who we have batting for us, or whomever is our captain, New Zealand is always almost like a graveyard for the West Indies. And I don't know, maybe the lack of activity across both squads will perhaps equalize the performances. The West Indies could have their very best performance in New Zealand ever, or in a very, very long time, or it'll just revert to type, which is the West Indies coming away from New Zealand with a disappointing showing.
I'm hoping it's the positive one. We'll go to break and come back.